Like this show and want to make your own? Let me tell you about Anchor. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Now you can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Stay spooky. I'm Marnie Vinge, and this is Irioki. Join me and my friends as we explore the darker side of the Sooner State. All right, I'm Marnie Vinge, and this is Irioki, and I'm here today with Jesse Edgar.
Hello.
The photographer behind the Oklahoma Abandoned Project. So if you want to talk briefly about that, because you guys, we're going to dive way into that in the second half of the podcast, and we're going to tie in a spooky story with what Jesse's doing. So if you just want to tell them what you're doing.
Yeah, not a problem. Oklahoma Abandoned Project is something I created. I started photography probably about 3 years ago, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, and I tried the typical portrait photography and doing some weddings and some family pictures and things like that. And while I could do that okay, and that was all fine and good, it wasn't, I could tell it just wasn't what my passion was. And then one day, driving home from Enid, Oklahoma, I'd come across it's just beautiful abandoned little stone building. And just part of me was like, turn around, because you should go take a picture of that. That'd be really cool. And I went back and I took pictures of it, and I kind of documented it. I looked up the history of it and everything, and that's when it just kind of clicked. And that's where it all kind of came from, was that one little photo session. And I was like, cool. Okay, where am I going to go next, And then I had a friend that needed me to come out to Tahlequah, and I decided to make a full road trip of it, and it all just kind of built up from there. So now the Oklahoma Abandoned Project is not just abandoned buildings, but I also like to do historical buildings and kind of go through the stories of the historical buildings as well. And of course, I throw in some sunset shots and things like that. And it's my artistic vision mixed with Oklahoma history, and photography. So
that's so cool. Yeah, I think I don't know, when I started following the project on Instagram, I think that you posted that picture about Enid.
Okay.
Maybe it was that far back. I don't know. How long ago did you start the Instagram account?
Well, I started the Instagram account. I started when I was taking a picture of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay.
But, and then I kind of transitioned out of that because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. But the picture that you're talking about from Enid, I posted that for the first time, probably a year ago, maybe. But I recently, about probably 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, reposted it as a post saying, hey, this is where it all started, kind of the story.
Okay, I think that's about the time that I started following, so that's probably pretty cool. And something that caught my eye that you were doing that was the reason that I reached out to you and I was like, you got to be on the podcast, is because one day you shared a series of images where you had gone to St. Vincent's.
Yes.
And I have heard of St. Vincent's. I've actually had someone jokingly one time sent me something that was like, hey, do you want to go to this place? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to go to this place? And anyway, for those of you that don't know, St. Vincent's was a mental asylum back in the 40s. And I've got some history about that for you guys right now. So it started out as a mental asylum that was run by the Brothers of Mercy. And I did a little research, and the Brothers of Mercy are still active, and it's this religious order. They're Catholic, obviously. It was founded over a century ago, formally in 1856 in Hadamar, Germany, by Brother Ignatius, and I'm going to butcher this, Lotschert. I don't know how to say that if you're German or have
I don't either. It's
okay. I don't know. I apologize to everyone. So he studied nursing with the Alexian brothers, and he went back to the people that he was living with and was like, hey, like, look at all this cool stuff that I learned. And he was known for being very charitable and taking care of people. And then in 1924, they actually came to America, New York, and they began practicing in-home nursing. And I think it's kind of cool because today they're known for assistive living efforts, like anything that might encompass, like helping people with disabilities or helping the elderly, things like that. And their motto is the charity of Christ urges us on. And they also do rehabilitation, which kind of ties into what ended up happening with St. Vincent's. And back in the day, St. Vincent's provided care for mentally ill men only. So it was just men. They cared for male patients that ranged in age. I thought this was really interesting. From the ages of 7 to 90.
How do you mix that? How do you mix that together, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that sounds like the most uncomfortable situation that you could possibly be.
Yeah, I mean, like, to think about, because I know that there was a place here in the city that got in trouble for treating, I think they were treating adults and they only had a license to treat children. And so it was like this big thing that happened like a few years ago.
I've had people on my Instagram that commented. I have a lot of older audience, and I've had comments on both my Facebook page and my Instagram page of people who have actually had their children there.
Oh, wow.
Not like, I don't think they were 7.
Right.
But like teenagers, maybe trouble, that type of thing. There was a couple of them. And they said that it was one of the biggest regrets was putting them in there.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's a terrible situation.
I think that is the state of, even now today, like mental health, because like I've dealt with all the mental health stuff and I talk pretty openly about that. It can be hell to be in like a psychiatric hospital or anything like that. And so to imagine it back then when like things, I don't know exactly when people stopped doing lobotomies or anything like that, but I know that it was much worse than it is today.
Which is kind of hard to believe.
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah, real hard to believe. So they had the kids mixed with the adults, and then in about the 60s, in 1962, there was the first big tragedy that happened there, and a nurse. I did not get if it was a male or a female nurse.
Female.
Okay.
It was female. Yeah.
Female. Okay.
I'm pretty sure I remember reading that as female. I mean, I could be wrong, but about 90% of that.
Yeah. So she suffocated 2 patients, and what I read said in one thing there was actually, I know that you're not super into the haunted stuff, but have you ever heard of Ghost Asylum?
Yeah, I did. I watched the
video. Did you watch that? Okay,
yeah,
I watched that this morning.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it's cool that they made their way down here to Oklahoma.
It is cool.
Gave that a shake,
What is so funny about that show to me is that they build contraptions to like capture ghosts.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I buy into that. It's kind of like that Mountain Monster show that was on there for a while. Like
maybe Dan Aykroyd and the Ghostbusters gave him the plans.
Exactly. Yeah. It's super funny to me.
Yeah. I mean, I see what they're doing on the show, and it's interesting. But I guess it's not my cup of tea, but I get what they're doing.
I totally understand. I think there are definitely like haunted shows that are better, like higher quality than others.
Like, I'm strictly talking about that show not being my thing. Yeah, the haunted aspect of I could watch that for ever.
Same. So, that one's definitely not my favorite, but I thought it was interesting because they kind of they talked about it and they were kind of vague about what had happened with the nurse, but in the article that I read, it was ruled that it was a thrill killing. Like it wasn't like a situation where she just lost her patients or anything like that. It was like she wanted to do this. Yeah. And that's
creepy.
Terrifying to me.
Yeah. That's never a good thing. It's not a nurse you want working at your place. I mean, but the fact that it was, which I know you're about to get to, but the fact that it was thrown out because of the fact that they said that she had schizophrenia, just thrown out. I guess what they thrown out, and then was it thrown out the case, and then she thrown into a mental facility herself.
Let's hope. Let's hope that she didn't just get to walk away.
Yeah, you have schizophrenia. You're okay. Go ahead and go back to nursing.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah, that is scary. And then so like in the 1980s, the asylum was taken over by Reverend Frank Dolan, and he turned it into a drug rehab center called the Main Artery. And that kind of went along with like what the Brothers of Mercy were doing, because it was a rehabilitation center, and at that time it was needed. Like that was something that wasn't super common. And
yeah. And I gotta say, the main artery, that's such a cool name.
I know. Yeah, that is such a good, like, where are you at?
Like, well, now I'm gonna have to change
artery.
the name of my entire project.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, got to rebrand now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool name. So Dolan, according to the stuff that I read, and you guys can go out there, and there are some websites that actually have like the News OK articles back from the 80s about some of the stuff that he was involved with. He was known as the Bingo King, which I thought was so weird that there's this like priest who also owns these bingo halls, and and there was some controversy about that because people were like, you don't need to be owning these bingo halls. Like,
I guess it's kind of gambling, is that right?
Right, yeah. I mean, I would think that would be considered gambling. It's kind of weird.
That's not what you want your priest doing.
Yeah, no kidding. So he was kind of a troubled man himself, and it's said that he experienced many violent things in his life, like people attacking him, which I thought that was kind of weird that like so many people had attacked him. But he had been attacked several times in and out of St. Vincent's, and he'd had some weird experiences there.
There's definitely more going on with that guy than I think has been written in the papers and things like that. He's certainly got something else going on.
Yeah. So in 1984, he was arrested by an undercover male police officer posing as a prostitute. He was picked up for attempting to solicit him. And in the articles that I read, it was written in the 80s, and I wasn't sure like how much of a solicitation he made of him, like if he thought he was a prostitute or if the guy was just, I don't know, it was kind of vague. It was a little bit weird. But so he got in trouble for that because the vice cop was like, okay, well, you're going to jail now.
Yeah, that's another one of those things on the list of things you don't want your priest doing.
Exactly. Yeah, he was not the squeakiest of clean priests.
No. Yeah. But he still had the Bingo King name going for him.
I know, which it makes me think of like Mattress King or like something like that, like one of those like advertisements.
I didn't know about the Bingo King thing. I didn't hear about that until here recently, and that name, I was like, man, that's cool. Yeah,
that's
the Bingo King.
It's so funny to think about like going to confession and being like, I'm confessing to the Bingo King. But anyway, so that stirred up some controversy when he got arrested, but he I think he continued to work there, and the drug rehab center was shut down later in the 80s, and there's one other violent incident associated with the St. Vincent's location. In 1983, a man who had lived at St. Vincent's, he either lived there currently or had lived there in the past, and he was killed in Norman. And so in 1988, Reverend Dolan was found murdered in his apartment, beaten to death at the age of 66. So he wasn't super old dude. Like he was pretty young, and the police, they actually were eventually led to Colorado, where they got in touch with somebody that was a friend of his. And this is the person who like told them that he had a history of violence in his life. Like, so they were like not super surprised that this had happened, which I also thought was really weird for a priest. Like, it's like, what is this guy doing?
Right. Yeah. His resume must have been.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they did arrest someone, but the suspect was released because of inconsistent evidence, and the murder is still unsolved. So there was this whole article about the murder charge. Let's see. It had to do with they believed that Dolan was struck in the head and there was a hammer, and the guy who they arrested, his fingerprints were elsewhere in the scene and he had blood on him, but they weren't on the hammer. So it was kind of like they couldn't quite.
Sorry. From what
you're fine.
From what I gather, he found him, right? He found
he found the body.
Did he report it? I don't know. I couldn't remember if he reported it.
No, because he also stole his car. Yes.
If that guy was like a friend of his, he wasn't really a friend of his.
Yeah, so, not a good friend.
Not a good friend at all. But I mean, if he found the guy and he checked his pulse, I think is what it was, and that's what I remember reading. Checked his pulse, if he got blood on his hands. But if he stole his car, it's like, dude.
Yeah,
you know
what are you doing?
You look really guilty.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean,
if you didn't murder him, you're at the very least up to no good. Like whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to call the police and like but so that has never been solved. Technically, I mean, I think looking at it, there's probably a pretty good chance that guy had something to do with it or knew who had something to do with it. And because of all this violent history that's associated with St. Vincent's, there are alleged hauntings there. It's listed on all of those like spooky Oklahoma road trip websites, and it'll be like, go to St. Vincent's, which like don't go to St. Vincent's because it's private property and like that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
No, like whenever I went there and I actually was pulling into the driveway of St. Vincent's, I didn't even know it was St. Vincent's.
Wow.
I thought it was a church. It has a big cross in front of it.
Yeah, it does.
And I was just driving down 23rd Street to actually go to to a high school. I've been in high school. And I drove past it, and I was like, I looked, and I was like, oh, wow, that church is, got busted out windows, and it's looking pretty rough. And I was like, that could be a cool photo opportunity or something like that. I wonder what that building is. And then on my way back, I saw it again. I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to come back up here.
Yeah.
So a couple days later, and then actually it's funny because I posted some other pictures on Instagram, and I had like 3 or 4 people it was just like coincidence. I had like 3 or 4 people. Hey, have you ever been to St. Vincent's? Hey, have you ever heard of St. Vincent's? I'm like, I've heard of it from a lot of different people, but I've never been, so I'll probably have to look into that. And then sure enough, I was going to go check out that church that I thought was a church. And I pull into the little driveway, and it says up on the there's like a big stone block that says St. Vincent's Home. And I was like, oh, I'm not walking into a church. This is not a church.
Where am I going?
This is not a church. This is an abandoned insane asylum with a history. I was not prepared up here mentally to deal with that, but I did it. And it was creepy. It was a really creepy place.
What was the vibe like at that place?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. The whole, like I said before, the abandoned thing, or not abandoned, the haunted aspect of these buildings doesn't really affect me much.
Okay.
I don't feel the vibes that other people do feel in that instance, but I was very uncomfortable there walking in, mainly because of the structural.
This is the one that had all of the water in the.
Yes. There was about 1.5 feet or more standing water in the first floor. The columns that were holding up the second floor looked like they were going to crumble at any moment. That's terrifying. It was terrifying because that water was so gross. Oh, and I know there was snakes, and there's just no telling what was in there. And just the creepy graffiti all over the walls. And, it was so dark in there. I had to use flash photography, and I don't know if you noticed, but my photos look even more creepy because I had to use that flash photography, and it just kind of brightened things up and made it look insane. That type of look to it. They did. So when I'm going into the second floor of St. Vincent's, I go up the stairs, and I'm going in slowly, and I'm like, if this falls. If I don't die from impact, I am going to die of a heart attack. Right. That's going to happen. So,
and if I get cut, I'm probably going to get an infection from this water.
Exactly. I'm going to die from that. I'm going to eat by snakes.
Eat by snakes,
Do snakes eat people?
I don't know. I think if they get big enough.
There you go. And if they're going to be big snakes like that, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
So I made my way up into maybe halfway through the building. And I was just like, it's not worth it. I'm not going to fall in that. Yeah. And I'm not going to have it crumble. I got enough content, pictures and things that I think explains how this place is. And so I didn't think that I needed to go any further, even though I wanted to, but at the same time I did not want to. Yeah. It just wasn't worth the risk. Right. And so I went ahead and got out of there. Another creepy factor of it was that's just not the best part of town.
Wasn't this the place where there was a gentleman in the parking lot kind of watching you?
Well, not the parking lot, no.
Okay.
As I came out of the place and I started doing my pictures on the outside of the place, people were watching me from the gas station across the street. Now, when I say gas station, this wasn't a 7-Eleven.
Right.
This wasn't a, on cue.
Yeah.
This was
with the cleanest
seedy,
bathrooms in the city.
Yeah. This was a seedy little, there were no gas pumps. I say gas station was actually just like a store, like a little store, convenience store. Anyways, there's like 5 or 6 people that were all just kind of standing up there. They looked like your, neighborhood. They looked shady. I'm just gonna put it that way.
Yeah.
And they were watching me, and they were all just kind of looking at me like, what's he doing? And I'm like, I don't want these people to come over here. And I just started getting this really uneasy feeling. That's when I was like, all right, get my last picture, get out of here.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there for probably about maybe 25 minutes.
Okay.
Total.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty much the experience. And it was pretty rough.
Oh my gosh.
But it was good. I'm glad I did it. I did it. So.
Yeah, that's got to be like doing that and going to those places, like regardless of the haunted energy or anything like that. There's probably a lot of like, I don't know if this is the right way to phrase this, but like historical energy, kind of just like a feeling of like
that I feel.
Yes, like a heaviness that it is things have happened here and
very much so. And it's not just negative. That's not always a negative.
Right, yeah.
Which is really cool because a really good example of that is when I went up to Mangum, Oklahoma, I stopped at a town called Willow. And Willow had an abandoned school there, and I walked into this school, and I was 30 miles from civilization. There was nobody around. It was just in the middle of nowhere. It took me forever to find it. Beautiful building, totally abandoned, destroyed. But I made my way into this building, and I'd say 80% of the time when I'm doing this, it's kind of creepy. I don't know what's going on around me. I don't know who's in here. I don't know.
Right.
But this was so far out in the middle of nowhere. It was right at sunset, so it was beautiful outside. It was beautiful, and it was actually a really pretty drive to get there. And I was just in this feeling of, I guess I was just in this emotional feeling just because of all the beauty around me. And, and I walk into this building, and it's this big old wood auditorium that was, torn up completely. But the vibe that I got from that place, just the historic vibe that you're talking about, it consumed me. I mean, I just like there was kids here. They learned here. This was a good place. This felt good. So that's really weird.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a different side of things than you normally hear. You usually hear, this place is haunted. It's creepy. It get bad vibes, negative energy. This is the opposite of that, and that's a really good feeling.
That is really cool. That is like because it kind of makes me think of when I went to Washington D.C. and I was standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and it's just such an overwhelming like. Whoa, this is huge, and like just the sheer size of it and the history and like it's also like have you ever been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C.?
No, I've never been to Washington D.C.
Okay, the Holocaust Museum there is amazing, and you guys should go there if you ever get the opportunity, but be prepared because it is very emotional. And when you walk in, there is a 3-story just sheer wall. Like you can see all the way up 3 stories, and in these huge letters, it says, "You are my witnesses." And I just got chills, like just thinking about it, because when we went through that, and we went through there, and this is kind of a funny thing. I went on that trip, like pretending that I went to UCO at the time, but I didn't really. And I still get emails from the professor that thought I was like one of the
Your assignments are very late.
Exactly. Yeah. And this was like 2008. I still get emails.
That's
funny. At the end, when we got to the guest book, somebody had signed it and said, "I will never be the same." And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, that
gave me a little bit of chills there. Yeah. That's rough.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, like that historical energy is real, and feeling that like what has happened in these places and like who has been here and what was their life like, that kind of thing. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, have you gone up to the abandoned circus?
I have not, and it's on my list.
Okay.
I have a list of places that I really want to go. And one of those is the abandoned circus. You're talking about the one in Edmond,
yes.
I'm assuming. That, sorry, I had to get a drink of water.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine.
That is on the list. I've heard good things about that.
I have too.
And then I have Griffin Memorial in Norman is definitely on my list. And I think I have a buddy of mine that used to work there is going to get me in.
Oh, that's
I'll have
awesome.
free reign of the place.
Yeah.
And that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm really, really hoping that pans out. The circus, and then, there was another one. I can't remember what it is now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that in your live stream the other night, you were taking like ideas from people of like different places that like they could, like, where do you want me to go? That kind of cool thing. So yeah,
I encourage everybody. I get a lot of messages from people. You should check out this place, and you should check out this place. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to look that up and research it and see if I can get out there. And I've got a whole list of possibilities that I need to research, and I just appreciate that from my audience a ton. I get a lot of feedback in that regard. So very, very cool.
And that audience has like grown exponentially so fast. It's like really cool.
It's a mixture of Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. All places. I love Reddit. Reddit. I post on the Oklahoma and Oklahoma City (OKC) subreddits. And if you guys out there listening, if you've never been on Reddit and you want to know what it's all about, go check out those subreddits because they're really cool. Yeah. A lot of people post a lot of funny stuff, but there's also a lot of really informative stuff too.
Yeah, you can go down the rabbit hole with Reddit. Like there is so much. Reddit is actually where my friend Hannah, shout out to her, the one I was telling you about before we started recording that did the Oklahoma Cryptids episode. That is where she got the Skinwalker story. Was in the Reddit Oklahoma. Okay. She asked, like, she just put it out there, like, hey, like, has anybody ever had a weird cryptid experience in Oklahoma? And so she got some stuff that I have had listeners contact me and say, I've never heard this before. And it's all because of Hannah. Like, she did, really like, cool. The awesome research.
I love Reddit.
Yeah.
It's a resource that a lot of people, especially people who are trying to create, in my case, I guess a project, I don't know if you want to call it a brand or whatever, but they don't utilize it, and I do recommend that you do that. If you do it right, don't be spammy.
No, don't. That's
they don't like that over Reddit.
Nobody likes that.
Reddit is the last place you want to be spammy because they will let you know. Reddit is raw and ruthless.
Oh yeah, you think people are mean on YouTube? Like no, you haven't seen mean.
But my Facebook page also is been surprisingly. Been surprisingly helpful as well. I'm getting my Instagram following because I put a link to everything I post on Facebook over to Instagram. And it gets shared quite a bit on Facebook, so then that leads to traffic too. And then I have the website now, so I'm hoping that's kind of awesome. Going to become a central hub of things.
One of the things that I wanted to mention to the listeners of this podcast is you guys love Oklahoma history. That's one of the reasons that you tune into this. And Jesse does these really cool kind of like, they're very easy to consume, quick bites of information about each historical location that kind of give you like an overview of what you're looking at, and it really provides some great context for the images. And I think that's one of the coolest things about what you're doing is like every time I go through and I'm like reading it and I'm like, this is stuff that I've never heard, like the Dungy, if you want to talk about that, the high school and all that.
I do try to make quick and concise stories, mainly because of Instagram's text limit.
Yes, yeah.
But because that when I make a post, I post on Instagram first, and then I share it from there. And so, like on Facebook, there's no text limits. Yeah. But on Instagram, I am limited. So my stories are usually short and to the point. I don't get into as much detail about it as I want to. But I have plans to actually write a book.
Yes.
So when I do that, which I'm hoping will be started relatively soon, when I do that, the stories will be longer and the stories will be much more intricate and all that. And
that's exciting.
I'm really looking forward to that. Like I like to explain two things whenever I make a post about an abandoned structure or Oklahoma history or anything. I want to write in the story about my personal experience going into the place. What it was like stepping foot into
I think
this.
That's what is so appealing about those captions is like just it puts you there.
Yeah.
Like and that, and that's what I love about it.
And it's such an experience that there's hardly enough adjectives to explain it. But and then the history. I got to put the history in there about the building as well. So usually buildings have a lot of history. So when you're limited, I don't know what Instagram's text limit is exactly, but it's too small.
It is. So change that Instagram.
Exactly. I am limited very much by that. So I've been trying to post longer stories on my website. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to do that or not. I may or may not. I may save them for the book. But we'll see. But yeah, it's been a really, really cool start to this project. I'm really excited about it. And you had mentioned the Dungy High School. That right there is a story. You want to talk about history. And, and that place was one of the most eye-opening experiences. I remember that when I pulled up into that, there's this like a driveway. I mean, it was a parking lot, but it's a driveway now. It's just covered in grass. But it was the gymnasium. And I looked, when I pulled up, I was like, okay, it's a gym. And it looks a little rough. It's in a rough neighborhood. I was like, but I wasn't really I didn't know what to expect. And so I get out of my car and I walk into the gym. And I poke my head into that door and I'm just like, oh my God, what happened to this place? What could possibly cause this damage? And this just unbelievable destruction. It's just crazy. But I don't know if it was a fire. I don't know if vandals been in it, but it's been abandoned for over 20 years. So, I mean, well, I say 20 years. It was abandoned for about 30 years, then purchased and used for about 2 years, and then abandoned for another 20 years. So, I mean, it's been through a lot. But, and it's been caught on fire on 2012, I believe. So it's been through a lot, but I was told about it from another Instagram user, actually. That was one of the ones that I was referred to by a guy named Diego.
I follow Diego.
Do you? Awesome. Yeah, he's cool. He posts a lot of stuff. He gives me a lot of feedback on my images. We kind of swap feedback. He's a cool dude. But he told me about it, and I was like, okay, I'll go check that out. But then he told me that he thought it was going to get torn down here pretty soon. So I was like, all right, I better get up there sooner. So I made my way up there, and it was just extremely shocking. And that's just the gym. I mean, when I went to the actual high school part of it, I mean, I've been to a few abandoned schools, and there's like, usually there's graffiti on the walls, things are tore up.
Pretty standard.
Pretty standard. Broken windows, blah, blah, blah. No, this place, the roof was caved in, the walls were crumbling, there was not only graffiti on the walls, but it was like professional graffiti. Like whoever these vandals are super talented. And then the fire and all the burnt just wood and you could still see just like pages from textbooks and stuff laying all over the floor, and it was just all around emotional experience. That place, I talk a lot about how places need to be like repurposed, and the state shouldn't have these abandoned places not go to use. So this place needs to be torn down. It's a safety hazard. You can't reuse this place. It's that bad. But what was really, really cool, and I don't mean to like do any kind of shameless self-promotion here, but I run a computer repair shop. And my computer repair shop, I meet a lot of people through this place. And one day I had a customer come in, drop off his computer with me, and he saw I was working on the edits of the photos for the Dungy High School. And he goes, "Is that Dungy?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's Dungy." And he's like, "I went there." And I was like, "Really? Have a seat, please. Tell me more." He's like, "Yeah, I went there. I graduated the year that they closed it down." And I was like, wow, that must have been a pretty crazy time. And he went on to tell me about his experience there, and it was an all-black school, segregation school, in the beginning, and then he said that part of town was pretty bad, like, actually really bad. And he said, it was the type of town where if you got in a car wreck, or if you got into something, some kind of like a minor situation where you needed the police called, they ain't gonna come.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not gonna come. At least not by themselves. They're only gonna have to have multiple cars come out for even the smallest little thing because of how rough that part of town was.
Wow.
He said it happened to him many, many times. He said I say car wreck. That was the first example because he told me he was in a car wreck and he called and they just never showed up because. Wow. It was too dangerous for them to come out there, or they didn't want to risk it. And it just wasn't worth it to them. So, anyways, that's crazy. But the really good thing about that is, I say good thing, the silver lining of it all is he also told me about how much better it is now because he still lives there. He still lives in the same area. He said that it's not like that anymore. He said it was a time where in that specific part of Oklahoma, when he lived there in the 60s, 70s, if you were white, you just didn't go there because it was dangerous for you. That's why the cops didn't go there.
Right.
But he said it's so much better now, and that it's just nothing like it used to be. And that, in his eyes, that school represents a time when that part of that town, or when that town was something that it's not anymore.
Right.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
Which I get that. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But he knew, I think it was Peyton, last name Peyton, was the guy that bought it and opened it up in 98. He knew the guy that reopened it. That was a sad story. Everything about Dungy's sad.
Yeah.
It really is. He reopened it in 98 for troubled teens, to have a place and come and learn that's not in a regular public school. But Thomas Payne, didn't follow the rules and regulations. He got threatened to get shut down, and then he was hiring teachers to save money. He was hiring teachers that weren't certified. That was like what was going to get him shut down. But then he got in trouble for a child abuse scandal.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
And that was a final nail in the coffin. Shut down. Now it's what it is. So Dungy is a really interesting place.
It's a multi-layered story.
Oh, it really was. I feel like I've been talking for just like.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I totally want you to talk about all this stuff. And there was something that you had put in your outline that I was really curious about. Yeah. The Rest Haven photography.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that stuff.
I've been hired Rest Haven off of Western and 104th. Yes. Western 104th, they contacted me, wanted me to do some photography for the cemetery. Now that sounds like, ooh, so you're going to take pictures of the cemetery. It's nothing like that.
Right.
That Rest Haven place is gorgeous. That is a gorgeous place. The inside is gorgeous. Whoever their interior decorators are, they need to double their pay. They have a chapel out there that is just gorgeous. It's going to be an easy place to take pictures of because it's going to be hard to take a bad picture. It's that pretty. But it's a pretty big job for me personally. It doesn't really have anything to do with the Oklahoma Abandoned Project, but it's going to be a really cool experience. Yeah. So, and the fact that it's a cemetery and
that's cool.
I get to take, if I'm taking pictures of a place like that, it's not usually to brighten it up and make it look pretty and everything like that. Yeah. That's what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be kind of the opposite, which I'm really excited about.
That'll be interesting. And one of the things that you have offered on, like I think this might have been something you talked about in one of your live streams, was the memorial photography that you're doing for people, like, which I thought was so cool. Like that idea of like memorializing a place. Yeah. Like that is, and if you want to talk about that and kind of.
I'd love to. Yeah. It's really tough, the memorial photography is, because it's a product that you have no idea that you need it until it's too late. Yeah. And that doesn't matter like what kind of person you are or how far you plan things in advance. It's just not something you think about or think you need, because I am the same way. And what I mean by that is, first of all, the memorial photography is where I go out to a location that holds a lot of memory for you, whether that be maybe it's where your grandparents lived or where your grandparents live. You know, and they don't have to be passed away for this to be. As a matter of fact, it's better if they're not, because I can go in and take pictures of how things are normally laid out in the house. But yeah, that's what I do. I would take pictures of the interior of, let's say it is your grandparents' place, and it's where you grew up. You spent a ton of your childhood. You know, it holds a lot of memories. Your grandparents are getting older, you know, and you want to save these memories forever. You know, I would go in, I would take pictures, not just of the house. I'm not just going to go into a room and take a picture. Yeah. I'm going to take a picture of, you know, the stove where maybe her cast iron skillet that she's been using for 20 years sits. You know, I'm going to take pictures of the walls where, you know, she may have those old flour, sugar canisters. You know what I'm talking about. Every grandma has those. Oh, yes. You know, where you go into the living room and you got your grandfather's recliner that he has sat in for 20 years. And I'll take detailed close-up pictures of that. And just the way that the house is laid out, and any kind of spot in that house that always comes to mind when you think of your grandparents' house. the reason why I said it's a hard product to market is because nobody knows, like I said, that they want it until it's too late. And in my case, my grandfather and my grandmother, they passed away, relatively recently. And I would do anything. I would do anything to have those pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Of that, because they owned a salvage yard, which I have posted on my Instagram as well, pictures of. So some of you listeners might be familiar with that. But they owned a salvage yard. The inside of their house was exactly like I just described. I was pretty much just describing my own experience. And I would just do anything to have those pictures. And when I edit those pictures, I really edit them. It's not just a picture and then I make sure the colors are right. No, I edit them in kind of an emotionally charged way where I bring out the main vibrant colors and I take out other colors, and it's kind of like a black and white sepia with some extra color into it to make them just feel emotional and memorable and that type of a thing. So it's kind of cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is really like, that is something that I wish I could have had, like memorial pictures of my dad's motorcycle before we sold it.
It's perfect.
Like that would be a perfect kind of.
It's not just a grandmother's house,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
pets.
Yeah. Oh,
pets, your own house. Like right now, I'm going to take pictures of my house as it is right now that I have a 2-year-old and my family is growing, because when they're 18 and moving out of the house, I'll be able to look back at these pictures and be like, that's what it was like back then. So memorial photos are not just about, you lost somebody. Hey, let's go take some pictures so that I'll have them. It's something you have to plan out. Yeah, in advance, because that's what you want to do.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. That's, oh my gosh, you're doing so much cool stuff. And is there anything that you want to plug for people to go check out, like the Instagram, the website, give those addresses? And
if you search Oklahoma Abandoned on Facebook, Instagram, it's going to come up. Probably the first thing that comes up. If you want to learn more about the memorial photography and see some of the examples of that, you can go to foreverinaphoto.com.
Okay.
And then, I have a lot of projects going on. I mentioned the book. That's another thing that I'm really excited about. I want to do some art shows. I'm planning on taking some of my framed prints and taking them and showcasing them at an art show. I don't know which one or where, but I'll definitely make sure everybody knows about that. Yeah. And then as far as like future things for me, I got another podcast I'm going to be doing. I'm sure you're familiar with This is Oklahoma. Yes. Yes. I'll be going on there. It'll probably up later in the month, maybe the beginning of next month. And then what's really cool is I actually have a live TV interview that I'm going to be doing.
That is so cool. That terrified. Is so because like this is being recorded today and won't come out until next week, so like I can edit it if I need to. Oh yeah. But like live TV, oh my gosh.
I'm going to go out there. I'm going to say something stupid, and everybody needs to watch, not because of my engaging content, just to see me say something stupid.
It's like, did you ever watch Frasier?
Oh, I loved Frasier.
Okay, when they have the bear clock and they're doing Antiques Roadshow, and Marty's like, no matter what they say to me, I'm just gonna say that's pretty much what I thought. And then they get to the end and they tell him it's worth $25,000, and he goes, ka-ching! I'm like, and then they're just, oh my gosh, it's so funny.
I love Frasier.
I love that show so much.
Frasier, Seinfeld, all of them. Oh my gosh.
Frasier is my like go-to show that I watch when I'm like, but anyway, so I think that's about all I've got. Have you got anything else? Or
I do have one last thing. Okay. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. I got a little gift for you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to take this microphone over here or not.
Oh yeah, you're totally fine. Okay. I'm excited.
Oh, dead air.
That's okay. That's totally fine.
I have for you.
Oh my gosh.
One of the Oklahoma Abandoned calendars.
Oh, I'm so excited.
2020.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's just a photo calendar.
Oh my gosh.
With a collection of photos I've taken like on my Tahlequah trip and all that kind of stuff.
That is so cool.
The abandoned church and the state capitol publishing building from Guthrie and abandoned gas station and all sorts of stuff.
I can't wait to look through this. And you guys, y'all should go check out Jesse's photography, because one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to him was the mood of your photography is very it kind of fits with what I'm doing. Some of those pictures are very
Yeah.
and like kind of fun to look at if you're into that kind of stuff. And
I try. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I try and just be a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of people doing urbex.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
That type of stuff, the urban exploration stuff. There's even quite a few of them that do it here in Oklahoma. I mean, they're out there. But I try to separate myself from them by doing a specific type of edit and the way that I release my content and stories and all that kind of stuff. So
it's great.
Yeah, that's what I try to do, and I hope you enjoy the calendar.
Yeah, I think I totally will. This is going in my office. So the only thing I've got for you guys is follow the Instagram and the Facebook. It's at Erioki. The Facebook group is Erie Okies, and we have been having a lot of fun discussion in there in the last 24 hours about the EVP that was on last week's episode. So that has been like, people are speculating, what did it say? Like what, and there are a couple of camps that are going on right now. There are the people who are like, no, it's totally like saying go away. And then there are the people who are they're like, it's saying come play. And so it's kind of like, you know, it's
Which
like,
one do you think it is?
I think it's come play.
Oh.
I think it's come
Did
play.
I just split your audience?
I think you did. I think you just like divided the brand. I think, yeah. Yeah, I think, so a lot of fun stuff's going on in there. And I actually published a short story on Amazon. There are going to be more of those coming out in the coming months. And I'm going to be publishing a novel next year. So if you want to check that out, search for Marnievenge on Amazon, go read it, leave it a review if you like it. And, that's one of the best ways to support the podcast. So, I think that's all I've got for you guys. So thank you again for being here.
Oh, I appreciate it more than
I had so much fun.
having me on here. I did too. And
Good.
I think it went well. My first podcast.
Yes, I hope that your first podcast experience was a good one.
It was fantastic.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Oh, awesome. All right, well, y'all stay spooky.